I wanted to follow up on a question that somebody had for me, which it was a really good one, which is how do I get in shape for competition? I'm going to go to a BJJ competition and I have like 5 matches. Like, how do you get in shape for that? I think that that's a really reasonable question, and I'm definitely qualified to answer it. I've had over 1,000 matches in competition. I competed not in BJJ, in wrestling, but I competed for like 12 years, and I had well over 100 matches each year because the goal was always to get 100 matches in the off season alone, right? So not even during season, and it's a lot of work, right? And so I have a lot of experience with the preparation for it and what to expect from it. And but I'm not going to give you graphs and charts and all that bullshit. This seems to be like the new thing now. Like, people like to try to like pigeonhole people. They don't care about their, knowledge or their experience in something. They want them to be like, well, what's the recent science say? Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? If you want to know that so much, then go look it up yourself. Like some guy on Instagram, I responded to something and he was like, I was talking about mental toughness, and how and I'll get back to this because it's germane to the topic because of the amount that you train, right? And I said, like, a lot of times we just overtrained in wrestling because it wasn't about the physical shape, it was about the mental toughness, like, and you're training mental toughness. And of course, somebody had to be like, well, how do you actually measure mental toughness? And I knew that it was just like a troll. It's a trolling response. You know that there's, what do you want? Okay, fine. On the x-axis are the different variables. Okay, so how often are you bitch out? What's the frequency, or the time to bitching out? You know what I mean? And how frequently do you think about bitching out while you're in the middle of a match? And then on the y-axis would be, the number of times. Okay, and then you know what you could do? You could run a repeated measures ANOVA on you and maybe some other people and see if training differences change your mental status. How about that? Asshole. Like, it's just like people don't care what your knowledge is. They want to see charts and graphs. Like, I'm a scientist and I'm telling you that, like, half this stuff that's out there about, like, increasing strength and all of that, like, there's some truth to it, but most of it's just put the fucking work in and eat well and sleep and all that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. So, side tangent. So let's get back on how do you get in shape for competition so that you don't feel it. You don't. It's impossible. Okay. I know that maybe some people think that I'm going to say, okay, so this is exactly how you do it. Here's what you can expect out of competition. It's always going to be hard. You're always going to get tired. You're always going to get banged up. And if you're going against somebody at your, like, relatively skill level, you're going to go harder than you normally do in practice and stuff. And you're never, ever, ever going to be in such good shape that you could do 5 matches in competition and it's a breeze. You're going to be so tired that you're going to be like, God, I don't want to come. I don't want to go to practice next week. Okay. That's the short answer. So let me draw it out a little bit to give you a few case scenarios, okay? Because there are some things that you can do to improve uh, your competition strength endurance, okay? And again, no charts and fucking graphs. I'll tell you what I did, and it works, okay? And then also, like, some other things that can are related to it. Okay, so let me start with this. When I was in high school, I just didn't do wrestling. I was also a good runner. I ran cross country, and then my senior year only, I ran track. Now, a good cross country coach, and I did have one, knows that if they just keep running you to death, that you'll get slower. So towards states, they tapered us off and tapered us off. And I remember thinking, God, I said, I don't know, man, we're not training hard enough. And being a wrestler, I wanted to just train more and more. And I got faster and faster and faster leading up to state. Now, did I get less tired in the 3 mile race, right? Because cross country is 3 miles. No, every single race, every single time, if you're doing it properly, you should barely cross the finish line. But I was faster. Okay, because now I have more ability to put the energy output that's necessary. So you're never, ever, 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 ever going to be in such good jujitsu shape that a 10-minute match, if, like, let's say you're upper level belt, right? It's going to be less time for that if you're not, or depending on the organization or whatever. Stop splitting hairs and stop commenting on my page about all the splitting hairs just to be an asshole. Okay. Yes, there are differences. The amount of time is kind of irrelevant because if you are going to push yourself really hard during that time in a competition. Okay. So I don't care how many times when I ran track, I ran the 800. If I ran 10 800s in a day, that wasn't going to make it so that when I ran 800, by the way, that would be a lot, but it wouldn't be that when I ran the 800 in competition that I didn't get tired. If I didn't get tired, then I didn't run hard enough. Okay. So you're always going to be exhausted. So you will get more mentally tough though the more times that you compete, and that's a good thing. If you compete once a year, well, you're frankly not going to be that mentally tough. But if you compete like I did, now it depends on how old you are. I don't recommend this for anybody who's old. But if you're going to compete like I did, which was like every freaking weekend, minimum, like every other weekend or so, or every third weekend would be a lot off, a lot of time off for me back in the day. Like I got really tough and really understood the expectations of what competition was like. And it was leave it all on the mat, no matter what. So I think a lot of people think that if I were to train like crazy in practice, right? Let's say I have 5 matches, that if I did 5 10-minute matches, that then I'll be trained, I'll be, prepared for BJJ competition. Well, that's not realistic because you're going to sit on your ass a lot in a BJJ competition. If it's anything like wrestling, you're not going to wrestle and then wrestle. Well, I've heard this, by the way, with BJJ, of shitty run tournaments that you'll be out there and then like you only get a few minute break and then you go back on the mat. Well, hopefully your opponent has the same problem. Okay. But generally, like in wrestling, there's actually a 30, well, there used to be, I don't know what it is now, but there was a 30-minute rule where like if I just had a match, you can't make me wrestle until 30 minutes, right? Now, if you're in shape, that's a huge amount of time to recover. You even have time, to rehydrate, put some salts back in you. You write some of the electrolytes and stuff like that. Don't go eating a lot because you're not going to, the food that you ate is not going to go into your muscles in 30 minutes. Like, you want, if anything, you just want high glycemic stuff like, and maybe a tiny little bit of protein to carry it. You know what I mean? But you don't want to be friggin' eating a lot at a tournament because that fuel is going to be used later on, not during the competition. Okay. And then I've already talked about weight cutting, by the way, on my channel. So, and like how to do it properly and stuff. But the food that you ate before is the energy that you have now. You only thing that you can replace that's going to be there is glycogen, which is going to come from, glycemic stuff like Gatorade and shit like that, like and like maybe oranges and stuff. But you don't want to be eating a lot of anything heavy. You know what I mean? Like a lot of guys I would know, they'd be like eating freaking peanut butter, and I'm like, there's so much fat in there. Like you're gonna have freaking forever digesting that. And you're gonna feel like shit on the mat. And by the way, that's gonna really affect your performance too. If you eat like shit between matches and then, oh God, wait, I just ate a peanut butter sandwich and now I got to get on the mat in 20 minutes. Oh yeah, you're gonna feel like crap out there and it's gonna suck the life out of you. Okay. So that is important. But by and large, let's say that you're not a moron and you're doing things properly, right? You're only eating stuff like maybe some crackers and some fruit and Gatorade and stuff like that. Then and you're doing things properly. Okay. The hungry dog fights the hardest is what my wrestling coach used to say. Um, that you only need to be in shape for the amount of time that you're going to be on the mat. Okay. So if you have a 10-minute match, you don't need to be able to go for 50 minutes because you're never going to, if you train for 50 minutes, you're never going to be in the same kind of shape because you're going to dog it if you do a 50-minute match. You ever notice how like anybody who's new, like if you've been around a while and the white belts, like it's like one of their first kind of times and you have 10-minute a day where you're going to do 10-minute goes, which is what we always used to do on test days. And my coach would have us do like 3 10-minute matches, like back to back to back, no rest. And I would always tell like the white belt that I'm going to go with, be like, careful, don't go 100%. You're going to fucking regret it. What do? Go 100%. They're dead in the first 5 minutes, right? And so then I'm just going to sit on them the whole time because I know that we've got 2 more of them. So you're not going to be in shape for competition if you're doing long matches. Now, is it good for you? Of course it is. It's good, basically, really excellent steady state cardio. But what you probably should be doing, this is what I would do, okay, is that you get somebody who is tough and who will work with you. My friend, who I don't train with anymore, but I really wish I did. He and I would have he used to compete all the time when I was at my old school. I would be like, if you're going to compete, man, I will be I'm an old guy, right? So I'm like, I said, I will be your training partner. I will, if you need to go 6 or 8 minutes after practice, I will do like a 6 or 8 minute match with you and I will give you hell. I will kill myself for your benefit because what I needed him to be able to do is to go whatever length of time that he's going to be in that competition, right? Balls to the wall because he needs to be in that kind of shape, right? Because that if you've ever done competition, it's a sprint. And then you will recover between matches if you are in good shape, if you train. and then you can hopefully go balls to the wall again on the next match. That's what makes competition hard, is that you need to be able to have that adrenaline dump and go hard when it matters on the mat, and then you hopefully recover between those, and then you go again. But maybe you don't all the way recover, but that's part of the mental game. Okay, but to think that you could do 5 or 6 of those in practice, you're going to beat yourself to death, and you're probably going to burn the candle at both ends, depending on how old you are, depending on how many days a week that you train. Like, this was a major problem in wrestling. They all did it to us, and they wondered why at the end of season everybody was toast. Well, it's like, oh, you looked so much better in the beginning of the season, and it's like, well, yeah, because your guys' answer to everything was harder, 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 work more, work harder. And it's like, well, you're not eating enough to recover, you're not sleeping enough to recover because you're in school. And it's a big problem that a lot of wrestling coaches are now realizing. And like Penn State, those guys try not to just like burn a candle at both ends like the Iowa guys, and that was the style that we had. It's not, more is not better in that regard. Okay, you need to listen to your body. But I would recommend training really, really hard for short duration, the duration that you need for a match, right? And be in that kind of shape and do 1, maybe 2 of those after a rest, right? Like after a long practice or so. If you have a 10-minute match and you can go 10 minutes really, really hard, and then you can recover within a few minutes, then you're fine. But to keep doing it isn't going to make you any better shape, so that competition doesn't hurt. It's always going to hurt. It will always hurt. No matter how good a shape you're in, you're going to run faster when you're in better shape, and you're still going to get tired. Okay. So I hope that helps you to understand that, because I think people watch the judo competition, the Olympics, which is going on right now, and they're like, that guy was gassed. Well, yeah, because he's trying really hard. You think that he doesn't train hard? It's just that the human body can only do so much. And when you're in a real competition, you're going to throttle it really hard, and your body will get tired. Okay. But then it's like, then you have that mental capacity, if you train hard matches, to know you're going to live through it. You're going to live through that hard match. And I'll leave you with this. This is a quote that Jay Robinson said when I was at when I went to his camp. I went to his camp twice. He had a 28-day intensive wrestling camp. And it was awesome. And he says, remember this, this is awesome. Pain weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. You can think about that in terms of practice. You can think about it in terms of a match. If you're in a real match and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you lose because you're tired, that is the worst way to lose. In my opinion, it's the most disgraceful way to lose. It really is. Like, I mean, and all of us have been tired before, but I would rather die out there than lose because I got tired and make that as the excuse, right? So, because after that match is over and you recover, you will say, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. So if you're out there, you leave it all on the line so that they have to drag your ass out on the mat. If you do that and you still lose, at least you left it all out on the mat. Okay. Pain weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Think about that when you're during your training. If you do HIIT cardio, leave it all on the mat, so to speak. For me, it's the cardio machine. Leave it on the machine, because then I know that if I give myself the time to recover, right, because more is not better, that then I know my body can do what I want, and I know my brain knows my body, that I know how much more I have in the tank. And if you see that other person break, and that's what I used to always strive for out on the mat. If I break that guy, I know I got him, because I get a second wind, and now I'm not tired anymore. Now that I know that the victory is almost mine. Okay. And you can learn how to have that wrestling mindset. You're not born with it. Okay. I had to learn it. So I hope this helps you, and leave some questions, comments. Okay. Not graphs and requests for graphs and all that. Don't be an insufferable asshole. Okay. So till next time, thanks for watching.